Hi, everybody. My name is Clayton Kazan, and I am the Medical Director of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. And I'm here to talk to you today about improving your STEMI system using QI. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So first, relevant disclosures. I have no financial relationships or any conflicts of interest to report. Objectives for this talk. I'm going to give you a few of the please don'ts, a few of the please do's, and talk about how to foster engagement and alignment of your team towards system improvement. So let's talk first about the please don't do's. When you're building the system and using QI, it's really important, particularly if you are not an emergency medicine or EMS specialist, to make assumptions about why ER or EMS personnel do or don't do things. Just remember, you're an outsider. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the emergency department and in the EMS world that is not STEMI or stroke. And so try not to make too many assumptions about what they're doing. So I love this shirt. EMS is doing the same thing as the ER, but with 1/8 the room, less people, and at 70 miles an hour. The other thing is, remember that, like, particularly with STEMI, that the ER has other focuses than just STEMI. I worked at a STEMI center that was also a trauma center and a stroke center and all kinds of things that would come in there. And while the cardiologist will sometimes get upset about the way we manage the STEMI, you have to remember that it's part of the bigger landscape in which I'm working. The STEMI patient is not the only patient I have at that time, and quite possibly not my sickest patient either. Be careful being critical of mistakes unless you're committed to being equally to putting in the same amount of effort into giving kudos. So no one loves a Debbie Downer. So what we know that there are cases, even in a case where things went sideways, that certain things were done correctly or done well. So make sure that you balance out criticism and kudos. I have a lot of different base hospitals that I talk to. I have some that are really good in mixing the good and the bad. I have some that I only hear about when things are going bad. And whenever I see something hit my inbox from those people, I just shudder. So don't be like that. Be one that shares the kudos as well. It's much more appreciated. It's demoralizing to professionals if all we hear about is negative feedback. Now, some of the please do's. Number one, remember the golden rule. Treat your partners as professionals. So when you're talking to a firefighter EMT, a firefighter paramedic, an ER doc, ER nurse, they are professionals in what they do. And granted, their specialty doesn't completely overlap with yours, but they specialize in lots of other things other than where you overlap. If you remember to treat people as you want to be treated and you treat them as professionals, the relationship that you build will be a lot stronger, and they'll be much more willing to listen to you when you bring suggestions for change or when you bring criticism. It is okay to question people's decisions. It's not okay to question people's intentions. I've seen this happen time and time again, where we'll hear that, oh, you know, your firefighters did this because they're just trying to get back to their lazy boys, or they're just trying to get back to bed. And the assumption is, I know why they do what they do, even though I don't work in their world. And that is a big, big mistake, because once you start to question people's intentions, defenses go up and people really stop listening. So it's okay to question people's decisions. It's not okay to question their intentions. And remember humility, because we all make mistakes. Not one of us is perfect. If I were to put up the worst mistakes I've made on an ER shift over the course of my now 20 years in healthcare, you might be kind of shocked, but I still consider myself to be a really good doctor. No one deserves to be judged based on the worst decision that they ever made. Quality improvement is a process, not an endpoint. It's a verb, not a noun. So this is not remediation. It's not punishment to push someone through a quality improvement process. What we're really trying to do is try to identify our shortfalls and build our systems around them in ways that will lead to a reduction of those errors. But it's not that you made a mistake, so we're going to flush a case through QI. That's not how it works. QI is an ongoing process. Break your process down from start to finish into actionable and measurable steps. It's not that we are going to become the greatest STEMI center of all time, and we're gonna save a bunch of lives and everyone's gonna have great outcomes. We're gonna break it down into as many little manageable steps as we can, so we can focus our energies where they are best served and go after the low-hanging fruit first. Make sure that you involve the stakeholders and make sure you listen to their input. I've seen this go sideways as well, where I saw a cardiologist who seemed to feel that he knew exactly why we were having challenges in the field getting our paramedics to transmit their EKGs to the base hospital. And he made a whole bunch of assumptions that were really wildly incorrect. And what he wasn't doing was listening to the people who were actually tasked with this to let them tell him why they were struggling to do it. They understood the importance of it, but they had other challenges. There are lots of things that go on in their world that he didn't understand. So make sure you listen to your stakeholders. When they tell you something, don't assume you understand it better than they do. Hear them out. Be a good listener. Don't make decisions based on anecdote. Focus on data. You know, I heard about this one case, or we had this one bad case, and so we're going to change our whole system around. Don't do that. Be methodical. Use data. Don't use anecdotes. As you focus on these providers, lead with why. So there are all kinds of different process metrics that you look at when it comes to STEMI, when it comes to looking at stroke and other things. But whether it's E2B or D2B or trying to reduce false positive activations, EKG transmission rates and all these things, these are all surrogate measures. These are not really what we're after. These are all just specific little endpoints and ways that we measure ourselves. But truly, this is what we're trying to get. This was a cardiac arrest patient. You can see, I'm guessing you can tell which one it is because he's wearing the Aspen collar in the middle because he suffered a fall when he had his cardiac arrest. He was at the gym, had a cardiac arrest. Just so happened that the firefighters were at the gym. They went right over to him, started CPR, got the AED on him, shocked him, got him to the hospital. They were sure he was going to die. Went to the cath lab, got stents placed, made a complete and full recovery. And we got to have a ceremony to bring everyone back together with his family. And it was Father's Day. So we were able to do this around Father's Day. When we talk about doing quality improvement around STEMI, this is why we do it. It's not about fixing E2B or D2B or all these other measures. This is why we do it. So start with this because this is what everyone wants. And once you start with this and you show, okay, that this is really what we all want to happen, then you have to convince people that all these other things you're going to ask will lead to this. So then you focus on the how. So providers have got to believe that all these individual outcome measures that you're going to focus your energy on will lead to that desired outcome of the family reunion if they buy into it. So how do we do it? In LA County Fire, we developed a relationship with a firm that's called Cognito. They are sort of like a survey monkey on steroids, where you can develop these different forms where people will add in information and then it sends a PDF to a handful of inboxes that you choose. So what we did around STEMI in particular was we wanted to create a feedback loop between the STEMI centers and our providers in the field. So we created a Cognito form that we gave the link to the STEMI centers. The STEMI centers go in and input basic information that we ask of them. So it might be a really good job, or they want to share an outcome, or they didn't get a 12-lead EKG that they need from the field. They enter in which county fire squad was involved in the case, because that tells us which team members we need to forward this to. And then we ask some specific tidbits of information, and we allow them to attach files. So this is just an example of one that we received from Torrance Memorial, which is one of our STEMI centers. And this was the attachment that they sent. So it included a PowerPoint page just talking about, again, reiterating the learning points of why the STEMI Center stuff is so important and why these different measures are so important. But in particular, it showed angiogram pictures of that patient's heart before and after the stent was placed to show how good a job that they did. And it gave them their outcome measures. So the door to balloon was 36 minutes. EMS first contact to balloon was 60 minutes. So this was an absolute win, and the patient had a great outcome. Don't forget to share those great outcomes, because everyone on the team that helped carry that bucket of water all the way to when that patient gets discharged from the hospital, and even after that, where the patient goes through rehab or other things, really want to know that what they did made a difference. And it's so easy to forget and sometimes hard to be able to reach out and find the EMS providers that played a role in that, the 911 operators, all the people that played a role in that patient having a great outcome. But when you share that, that's how you get the buy-in. When it comes to doing feedback, celebrate the process, not the outcome. Sometimes you screw everything up, but for whatever reason, the patient has a great outcome. And sometimes you get everything right and the patient still has a bad outcome. So we focus on a process-based mindset so that even if the patient has a bad outcome, but everything was done correctly and done well, we celebrate that, because we've got to believe that if we focus on the trends and we can fix the processes, that if we follow these processes, the outcomes will eventually follow. So focus on process, not outcome. A lot of times we look at which cases we're going to review. Well, we're going to review the cases where the patient died. Well, that's the wrong way to look at this. You want to review the process for different runs to see was the process followed, not be outcome based. Remember, set manageable goals. So our goal is we're going to transmit 100% of the EKGs prior to the patient reaching the hospital. Well, we're currently at 30%. So our goal is that within the next 3 months, we're going to get from 30 to 60%. So rather than expecting to go from 30 to 100%, set it to be a manageable goal. And then from that point, look at, okay, if we can get that 60%, the next quarter, we're going to try to get to 90% and keep them manageable. If you just expect perfection, by the next month, you're not going to reach it, and everyone's going to get a sense of failure, and you're going to lose that buy-in that you worked so hard to get. So keep your goals manageable. Particularly in the EMS world, use competition to your advantage. No one wants to know that the fire station down the street or the neighboring battalion or the other shift at their station is able to reach these measures, but they're not. EMS providers and emergency department providers are by nature generally type A, fairly competitive personality types. Take advantage for that. So when we were doing our cardiac arrest quality improvement, we were sharing the compliance with compression depth, compression rate, compression fraction, first among station against station, but then we started looking at one battalion versus another. And we call division level quality improvement meetings, where we bring 2 or 3 battalions full of stations together, and we're able to compare one battalion versus another. And the competition gets really tight between them because no one wants to know that the neighboring battalion is doing better. So take advantage of things like that. Use some behavioral psychology to your advantage. And take advantage of the general competitive nature of EMS and emergency department providers, and see if you can use that to try and build up your numbers. Now, last, I'm going to just open up to questions. I'm going to be part of the panel, so we'll answer your questions there. But I want you to know that we will gladly share any and all of our policies and procedures from LA County Fire. Everything that we do in LA County Fire is open source. There's nothing that is proprietary. It's all public dollars. We're all looking for the same thing, which is to improve outcomes. So anything that we have, we will gladly and willingly share. We're also happy to host anyone who'd like to come and ride along with us and view our system. Thanks to COVID, we are requiring that anyone who rides with us be fully vaccinated. But beyond that, we're happy to bring people in if they want to see how our system works from the inside. And with that, I just want to say a big thank you for the invitation to be a part of this. It's really brings me a big source of pride to get to speak to my colleagues across the field. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the chat and on the in the group answering questions.